All right, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Future Ear Radio podcast. This should be a fun one today. We're joined by Dr. Michael Santucci as the guest, and with me co-hosting is A.U. Bankaitis. So wanted to bring her on to add a little color commentary, a little heckling for Mike as he tells his story. So, Michael, why don't you maybe let's kick things off with you just kind of sharing how did you get into audiology, and then how did Sensaphonics sort of derive and how did that begin?
Yeah, the how I got into audiology is a mystery, and I think that most audiologists will probably tell you the same thing. It wasn't like, I had deaf parents or I had some history with hearing loss that I don't know. I started like most people as a speech pathologist and hated it. And I was forced to take an audiology course. And when I did, it was very, very interesting to me. So I thought, oh, that's a lot more interesting. And so that's really how it started for me. And when I finished with my master's, which at the time was, unless you were doing research, it was what you got. My father said to me, so you're sure this is what you want to do? And I told him, I don't know, Dad, I've never done it. And I thought he was going to kill me right there on the spot. But that's how I got started. Now, the music industry part of things, if there's younger audiologists or people trying to start a business, I think that my journey might be of help somewhat. I bounced around my first year when those days in 1978, you couldn't get a good job as an audiologist. Most ENTs didn't have one. And it took me 3 months to find a job, and I got hired at a Tradewinds Rehabilitation Center in Gary, Indiana, which is a preschool United Way Easter Seal funded facility with 500 kids, OT, PT, behavior disorders. We had 8 kids in a deaf ed classroom, right? And that's where I got stuck. Now, I lasted a year because I hate working with kids, and I still do. So that was never going to fly. And I got out of it because in the day, hearing aid companies did not have audiologists working there. In fact, we couldn't even sell them. We would get in trouble with ASHA if we sold hearing aids. So he would come around and they'd, give me new hearing aids and talk about it. And he was ready to retire. And he goes, you know what? I think you should replace me. You want to get out of here? And I go, yeah. He goes, I can give you a job, in hearing aid as a hearing aid rep. And of course, I forgot all about getting my license revoked because we were supposed to do that. But that's how I got out. So I got into hearing aid sales, and I was trying to get more business out of this industrial hearing conservation company here in Chicago, and was hitting them up to help them get an audiologist to help me. He goes, I've got plenty of people. I want you to work for me. And so he gave me a big offer, and I went with Bob Conley doing hearing conservation in a mobile van. So that was 3 years out of college. So I'd switched jobs 3 times the first 3 years trying to find something that clicked, right? Mm-hmm. And this really clicked. But after 2 years, he dumped me because he was afraid I was getting too smart and going to compete with him. But I was also consulting. He had 2 contracts with the ENTs. And so he told me, you can have the ENT contracts. I don't want them anymore. And I went into private practice, sink or swim. Here's no life preserver. And so I grew the practice that way, and then was looking for a way to say, hey, I'm looking at this guy is working for industrial. He was one of the very first ones, and he does really well, even though there's a lot of competition. And it seems like everybody that started something did a lot better. So I thought, what can I get on the basement floor? And then a bunch of musicians, because by the way, so I should preempt this by saying my dad was a trumpet player, got a scholarship to college on trumpet, and then quit because of World War II, but had his own big band after that. And so my 2 sisters and I all played instruments. They played multiple instruments. Our house was full of music, so I knew lots of musicians. All my friends played something, so we really had a lot of music around us. And so I had a band that came to me, and they said, we just made our first LP, and we're really successful, but our singer is a female, and she's also an actress, and she says her ears are ringing, and she's quitting because she doesn't want to lose her hearing, so please help us. And I go, oh, put in some of those foam earplugs. And they go, have you ever tried listening to music with those in? I go, no. And I tried to play my trumpet, and I'm like, oh gosh, nobody could use these. And I'm realizing it's not that musicians don't care, they're uninformed, and there wasn't any good tools for them to protect themselves. So I started on this path to try to develop stuff.
But was that the moment? Because here, music audiology is a emerging, subspecialty, right? So this is back in the day. So did it click with you at that moment? Like, oh, maybe this is the path I need to go down? Or was this like, oh, I'm helping one? When did it click that you're like,
oh, no. This was like, I was hoping, I go, you know what? Musicians, they care. Because I'd say to my friends, oh, I could work with musicians, but they don't care. They could just turn it down. And I said, well, they can't turn it down. There's a drummer in their band, and you have to be louder than the drummer. And, and I don't think so. I thought, this is something I'm passionate about, and there's a need for it, and it doesn't violate the laws of man or higher beings. And so I thought I'd give it a shot. And that's really it. I was hoping for the best, and tried a bunch of filtered earplugs with Knowles filters, these little hearing aid filters, thinking, hey, I'll drill a hole through it and that'll sound better. And it actually did sound better, but it wasn't flat. And Need Killian, who happens to very luckily be in the same geographical area as me, said, gee, I hear you're working with musicians. Look at this thing. And he showed me the ER15. And that's when the filter was about the size of a nickel. It was so big in those days.
What era was this?
What year?
Yeah, do you remember?
85.
Okay.
85. 1985. Were you born yet, David?
No, I was born in 89.
Oh, God. All right. So Michael and I will just continue to talk to one another.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So moving on. So 80.
Oh, so he shows me.
You and me make up.
I had a couple of big clients that were interested in protecting. One was the bass player for a band called the Pat Metheny Group, very famous jazz fusion, high end, and Steve Rodby, also a producer for all these movies and all this stuff. He wanted to protect his hearing. And I had somebody in the Chicago Symphony, the second chair violist, who also was very interesting. So I put the ER15 on them, and they freaked out that this was something that they could actually use. And so I wrote in Medical Problems for Performing Artists. I co-authored an article with Dr. Cecil Hart, my mentor, who's an otoneurologist, now passed, but he was just the biggest genius in the world and supported me the whole time. In fact, he gave me, without rent, his clinic to use off hours to develop my business. He was so supportive, and so I always mention Dr. Hart. He is just a wonderful British-trained Oxford guy, but he was probably the top dizzy specialist in the world back in the 80s. I mean, he was the guy. Everybody came to see us from all over the place. So anyway, he and I co-authored the article, and then the next thing you know, I became famous for writing this thing about this plug, because I'm the only one doing it, right? It's easy to be famous as the expert when you're the only one. You're definitely the expert. And I remained the only one for a number of years. And then Marshall Chasin showed up on the scene from Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And he was trying to do mainly the same things, but although his path was a little different, he was mainly into classical music and non-amplified music, which I was too, but I was the whole everybody, you name it. And so that was it.
So, you know what? So why aren't there more music audiologists out there now?
Okay, so that's a good question. The thing is first off, though, it depends on your motivation, right? So a lot of people in audiology through the years, I've taken on students, many students, probably 60 or 70 students we've taken for part-time, and I've had how many fourth years? At least 6. And they're all, in fact, many of them are still music audiologists. Heather Maliak, Laura Sennett, Shannon Switzer, so these are people that did develop that, and Juan Vasquez, and then, of course, people that took my course like Frank Wardinger and all these brilliant music audiologists, because they were passionate about it and they wanted to do something. Other people want to do it because it's cool to work with a musician and get to go to the show, right? And who cares about their hearing? Just take the ear impressions and bye-bye. And I'm a music audiologist, and I'm like, oh, that's really good. So how do you show them how to use them safely? They go, what? I go, you're giving them an earphone that goes over 140 dB. How do you show them how to use it right? And they look at you like, whoa. So a music audiologist who's somebody who actually wants to learn about the dangers, the solutions, all that's been developed by myself and others before them to try and say this works to get people to protect their hearing. So I think the motivation is different. Interestingly, a lot of audiologists would call me and say, I don't know what to do. And in the early days, when I first started this in the 90s, when I made Grateful Dead was my first band for in-ear monitors in 1992. And I was so pumped because it put me on the map. There was only one other company, and now I'm on the map, and I end up getting Poison and Aerosmith and all these bands, right? And AC/DC, all in the same fall after I did that. So it was fantastic.
Well, I was just curious as to why aren't there more music audiologists? And one of the things that
so they would come and ask me, and so I figured I can't go all over the country and fly to see Poison in LA, and I was traveling everywhere because I was the only one doing it. So I ran a course called Gold Circle, and I had about 15 audiologists that showed up, and we had a 2-day session of this is what you do. Here's a live band. Here's how it works. And we did them periodically, and I had over 100 people, but then I just couldn't do it anymore. It wasn't cost effective. So now there is a Gold Circle virtual course we just launched about 2 months ago. And it's 5 hours of streaming of what you need to do with anybody from symphony to regular bands, clinical practice where they come in your office, all the different products, how they work, why they don't work. I mean, it's very full 5 hours worth of material. You have 72 hours to stream it, and there's a half a credit for CEUs on it. So it's a good, and I think that people, if they're interested, will go on there. When it first launched, I had about a dozen people that joined in right away, and there's the tire kickers, right? And they're kind of like, oh, I'm not sure. And I'm like, okay, don't take it then. Mm-hmm. But if people show up at your practice and you want it, and you're not turning them away because they're a musician, what are you doing with them that doesn't hurt their hearing? Because you're supposed to be ethical in that.
So do you think that's the biggest misconception that like audiology students or audiologists who might be interested in becoming music audiologists is that they think this is going to be cool because I'm going to get tickets and I'm going to
think so. I don't think it's some, right? Some just like ones that aren't students, same thing. I don't think it's because they think it's good. I think everybody, look, don't get me wrong. It's cool. Yeah. It is cool. I mean, it's not like I'm saying don't think of it as cool because it is. I mean, I just went to 3 shows in the last 2 weeks of people that I've worked with for 20 years. And, it's fun to go sit backstage and watch a show, do all this fun stuff. And they respect you because you're treating them. You're not selling them something. You're not doing a service by taking an ear impression for a product that you know nothing about, but you'll take an ear impression and maybe even run a hearing test. The real danger is these companies in the music industry don't care. They're like anybody where they're not audiology companies. They're selling companies. Like, they don't look at this stuff. They want to know what sells. So more speakers sells more ear monitors and we can charge more money. So let's make more speakers. Does it sound better? You can't make the bandwidth any wider. You can only bring it up in amplitude, volume, right? And with that, you can make them, because it's digital, little sections you can bring up and everybody thinks it's so cool, but it ruins hearing, right? And audiologists don't know this, so they go out and make a 10-speaker ear monitor. Here's a typical example, and this is why I fear people that see musicians, they're all coming out of the woodwork to get plugs or ear monitors, right? They see an audiologist. So this guy comes to my office, I won't mention names, of course, 3 nights sold out at City Winery in Chicago. R&B crooner singer, probably in his late 40s. Comes in, tells me, that he's been wearing ear monitors. He's had 3 different sets from different companies. They're all plastic. and that his band's been wearing my rubber silicone that isolates, and they really love him, and he wants to try the switch. Okay. So we talk about the procedure, which is, for me, I'm going to go over this full 2-page case history and look at your ear and hearing and music history to decide what's happening to you and how we can prevent it from getting worse. I'm going to teach you about how your ear gets injured and why, so you have some respect for your hearing. And then I'm going to examine your ears. I'm going to check your hearing, and okay, great. You won't believe how good my hearing is, he says. And I said, oh, really? What did the audiologist tell you? And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, when they tested you, what did they tell you? Because I never got a hearing test. You saw 3 different audiologists? Yes. And they never offered one. I didn't think about it. But they never offered me one. All right. But you won't believe how good my hearing is because my band freaks out at how low I keep my mids in my in-ears. I'm like, okay. So I put him in the booth. I test his right ear, and sure enough, he's flat 20. Beautiful. Test his left ear. He's got a 70 dB 4K notch.
Oh, man.
And I go in there and I said, are you taking your left earphone out all the time? Why? And I showed him, and he literally started tearing up. He cried. Nobody told me I wasn't supposed to do that. Nobody said I wasn't supposed to do that. I'm all about protecting my hearing. I didn't know I was hurting myself.
Oh, wow.
And unilateral, you're not noticing it. And it's so, it's so slow in developing. It's not like you lose it after one show. You're doing it every night. After 4 years, your hearing keeps going down, and you're not noticing it because it's at 4K speech. You're not going, what, with one good ear? So he didn't know. But even if the audiologist dummy didn't know anything about ear monitors and tested the hearing, they would have seen a small 4K notch. They would have seen it grow bigger the next time. They would have seen it grow bigger the next time, and without knowing anything, say, you're getting injury in your left ear. Well, that's the one I take out. Maybe I shouldn't do that. It's malpractice.
Sure.
It really is. Of course, I didn't say that to him, but he could go back and sue all 3 of these people. And it's not even the point. The point is, don't you care enough about people that want to do it the right way? Take an ear impression and see you later. I got my $50 and met a rock star. I mean, really.
I want to go back to the history of Sensaphonics and all that. So we were at 85. You were talking about you meet Killian. He tells you, all right, maybe you put a filter in this thing. How did and then eventually you kind of land Grateful Dead as like one of your...
Well, I was having made by outside earmold labs. Okay. I actually had 4 because I kept dumping them because they just weren't doing it for me. And I'm not mentioning any names, but there were 4 labs that I ended up getting very frustrated with. And they all wanted to use vinyl because it's easier and all that. And it was shrinking. And I'm like, I don't want vinyl. I want silicone. No, don't you want repeat business? I go, well, not at the expense of their hearing, because they think they got an earplug in. They don't remember it doesn't fit as tight as it did 3 years ago. They just think they're protected. Oh, yeah, right. Don't they come in every year for a hearing test? I go, no, they tell me to. They don't. Maybe 20% if we're lucky, right? They'll show up when they lost an earplug or something happened and they get ringing. But
so out of frustration with these labs is when you decided I'm going to start
figure out what to do. And I ran into, through a friend in England, I met the biggest earmold lab, Alcia. I don't know if you know Alcia. They have, 30 labs in Europe. They're huge. Ellison. And he said to me that he didn't like any of the people here in the States that ran earmold labs, and he'd be glad to train us for no charge, just to put a thorn in their side. So I'm like, okay.
And that's how what he did was a new process.
Retraining. That's awesome.
And at the time, it was a new process. Now it's the standard, but it was cold cure silicone. You didn't bake anything. You used to have to bake silicone. You make it like a cake. You bake a big cake thing and you put it in the oven and you take it out. This is cold curing, right? Doesn't do anything. You put it in a pressure pot and get the bubbles out, and that's it. So that's how we learned to do it. And it was super soft silicone. And, I'm a perfectionist, so my poor lab techs had to become the same. And I have 2 lab techs that have been with me almost 26 years.
Oh, that's phenomenal.
I swear they are the 2 best in the world. Nobody can touch them. And then the people that learned from them are now becoming really experts too. So it's important.
Okay, that's very cool. So you basically, you start the lab, you've identified your market, which is going to be musicians, and then when...
But I had the ear monitor thing, and that's all different. Now you're talking electronics and not just rubber earplugs with a filter. And so how do we do that? And I was having, again, while I was doing plugs by some other companies, they were also building the ear monitors. In fact, Rexton was building them for me for a while. And they put the guy that was running it at the time, put his best people on it. And so I was, they're going in Prince's ears and all these famous rock stars, right? And they were awesome because he had his best people on. And then he left the company, and the new guy goes, why are we giving our best people to this guy who orders us a few products from us? And I got the beginners, and they started falling apart in people's ears and all this horrible stuff. And I realized the only control you're going to have is to bring it in-house. So we created the big lab next door, a small lab. It kept growing. Now it's 3 times the size, but slowly we grew. And then I added Vanessa 6 months after Chris, and they've been there forever. And then other lab techs have come and gone, but that's kind of the story there.
That's awesome.
Focus of the company, though, never, ever left the realm of we're here as audiologists trying to protect hearing. It's not how many drivers can we make, how glitzy can we make it, all that stuff that doesn't matter. It's important, but the important thing for me is to contribute to helping them not lose hearing and continue to keep on stage. Those that have lost hearing, I have a device called 3D-ME, and it's an active music ear monitor with active mics and apps that you can switch it around. So there's a woman, I can tell you because she's gone public with it, Nancy Williams, is a very famous piano player and also very famous in the hearing impaired community because she writes about, audiology and audio problems and how hearing aids suck when she's trying to make them good for music. And Dr. Heather Malia convinced her to try this 3D-ME, and she wrote a review, and she said, the first thing I did was lay on my piano and cry. Because I haven't heard it sound that way in 30 years. And so this is what we love to do, right? Or I had another famous violin player had an acoustic neuroma on his right side. So he could hear his violin, but he could never hear anything else on stage. So we have a cross thing. So we put the mic on his right ear. We sent that signal over to his left ear monitor, and he was able to hear the rest of the band and blend it in. So these are the kind of things that help us, help them. And I think, like I said, I'm fighting against Logitech and, Lucid and all these mega companies with billions of dollars. And I've got 10 people and we're sitting in our little lab. And how do we still get, all these famous musicians? Because we do the right thing. And they realize we're about helping them hear better on stage and off.
Word of mouth is very powerful. So you're talking about, being involved in innovative products. I know you have, half a dozen patents, and you've been involved in engineering some products. Is there one product that you're most proud of, or?
Oh gosh, I would say that.
Or are they like children, and you love them equally?
The one that's the one I love them all equally, but the one that I think is the biggest impact product just got launched, and it's called DB Check Pro. And what DB Check Pro does is you plug your whatever earphone. I put all my competitors on there. There's 149 in-ear monitor and earphone on there. You pick your earphone, you plug in, and you start playing like normal, and it will tell you how loud in dBA you're listening to your earphones. And then it converts that to minutes allowed. So it's not dose, because dose, I did 100% dose when I was doing dose, right? Did dose, 100% dose, and they're all high-fiving each other. And I'm like, dude, that's bad. Not at all. We thought we got 100, right? So they don't understand. So I think that's the big problem, right? They don't understand it, but they understand you have 20 minutes, and they go, oh, our show's an hour. Maybe I should turn down, right? I mean, look, all these audiologists that still take ear impressions and don't care about doing anything else or don't do anything else, here's a product you give them and say, here, this will tell you how loud you're listening. I mean, it's almost obligatory that you sell this to somebody because they don't know. They always go, I don't know how loud it is. I don't think it's too loud. Here, and this will tell you, this will help you save your hearing. And so to me, that's it's patented. It's nothing like it in the world. And one of my competitors, Ultimate Ears, wants to sell it. So I'm taking liability away from everybody, right? They all go, oh, ear monitors used properly will protect your hearing. And then you ask them, how do you do that? And they go, don't turn them up too loud. And they go, oh, well, I would have never thought of that. I mean, they don't know what to tell anybody. They don't know. They're music companies. I'm the only audiologist in this thing. So they just know, they can say it because it sells more, but they have no proof.
I wanted to ask you, so that's very unsurprising that's how the music companies would operate. But for the musicians, what's kind of their reaction and what do you tend to pick up when you're interacting with a new client for the first time? Do they kind of have an idea that they're maybe susceptible to or putting them?
It's all over the board, David. It's all over the board, right? Some have taken time to research stuff. Some don't know. But here's what I will say to you. There are very few that don't care. Everybody goes, oh, they don't care. There are. I get some guys in on metal bands and they'll come up and we go, I don't care if you don't care. And I go, well, all right, that's your hearing, man. You decide. I'm just telling you, here's the consequences. You decide. Okay. And that's fine. I'm for pro-choice, free world, all that stuff. But the rest of them are either uninformed, misinformed, or underinformed about what's going to happen to them if they turn this thing up loud. Really. And if they knew that, if they knew it, so when they come to my office for an appointment, they go, I don't want to do the hearing test or the education, just make molds. And I said, well, I don't do that, but here, I can give you a list of audiologists that do in Chicago. Aren't you an audiologist? Yes. And don't you make these plugs? I'd be glad to make them. Somebody else does the impressions, I'll make them for you. But you want to see me as a doctor, that's my other hat, and I'm the doctor, and this is what we do. And if you don't want to do that, then go see another doctor that'll do what you want. And they never want to because it's another appointment. They're all right. I go, you're paying the same too. I don't charge extra for hearing tests. It's a first office visit, including your ear impressions. And you want to cut yourself short, that's fine, but I won't do it here. So they forced to do it. And then I educate them. I swear, I will tell you, 100% of them go, oh my God, I'm so glad you made me do that. I'm so glad you told. I learned so much. Oh gosh. And it opens their mind. If I tell them, this is why you have hearing. What's the purpose of hearing? The purpose of hearing for humans in early days is survival. Not music, not speech. It was to stay alive. And so it's this amplification system made for a quiet world that you can hear a small sound really far away. And now we throw all this amplification on it. And those speakers called your ear cells aren't built for that. So they get injured. That makes sense to them. And they go, oh, that makes sense. So that I go, well, but I can't replace them like the cones in the PA. They're gone forever. Oh, and they start realizing the importance. And I talk about early cognitive decline and untreated hearing loss, and they start freaking out.
So do you think over time more musicians are informed, or is the failing on the part of the music industry? I can't believe
my first trade show with earplugs, A.U., was in the late 80s. And here in Chicago, and there was about 10,000 people that came to this thing, and I had my little table with my earplugs. Did not sell one, and I was the laughing stock of the entire. You want to see something funny? Look at this earplugs for musicians.
Oh
yeah, it was very disheartening.
Who's having the last laugh now?
Yeah,
whatever, And so it's that the point for people trying to start a business is that if you believe that the market is there. And if you believe in what you're doing is good, and if you really enjoy what it is, then you have to persist if you want it to work. Very rarely do you hit it right off the bat. You're like a millionaire. There are people, but it's a long struggle, right? And it's been a struggle. It still is for me. Just so you know, I'm not making Starkey kind of money here. Right? It's a little company.
Well, but the market is there. But my question is, I'm surprised. obviously audiology, the profession, can do a better job in generating public awareness of musicians. But the music industry, too, I would sense, should have some level of responsibility. But
really, who is the music industry? But that's a big the music industry. Is that the musicians themselves? Is that their management? Is that the venue? Who's responsible?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Right, exactly, and that's the problem. So, if I've been in discussions with some, I can't mention who on this radio broadcast, but there is growing interest from big promoters worldwide. The voice of music in live venues and hearing loss prevention, which a lot of audiologists are part of, is the World Health Organization's Listen Safe initiative, Make Listening Safe. I've been on that committee since the core of it started in 2015 now. I've been on it 8 years. I think I'm the longest standing member. But we went after, first off, they're so brilliant there. Shelley Chadha is an ENT from India. She is the director, and she's brilliant. So they brought in stakeholders. The first meeting, a bunch of people from standards organizations, researchers, a few dummies like me out there working with musicians, and these, public health people. And then they brought in Apple and Bose and Samsung and Sony and all the players. And they said, you guys are making products that hurt everybody every day. There's a warning label on a pillow telling you not to get too close to an open flame. And yet millions of people are ruining their hearing and there's no warning. We're not telling you to force you to do anything. We just want to tell you when to warn people and how to warn them. They don't have to do anything, and maybe put a children's, safety thing on it. And Apple jumped in, right? Apple does it. If you have iOS, they tell you when the room's too loud and the earphones are too loud and all that stuff. So now we're after venues, and they did the same thing. They brought sound companies in. And they're like, okay, we took a worldwide survey on 20,000 concert goers, and there was some criteria. You have to go quite often, right? Are concerts too loud, not loud enough, or just right? 8% not loud enough. And I swear, because
how many? What
eight.
percent?
8. 8 said it's not loud enough. And I said, that's always going to be there. Their ears could bleed and their eardrums break from 180 and they'd say it wasn't loud enough. So I get that, right? But 72% too loud, 72%.
Wow.
And the others were okay, right? So now you get the majority of people that are listening to a show that they wish they would turn it down. And then we go to the engineers and they go, what's the sound levels at front of house for most shows? And they'll say, between 100 and 105 dBA at most arena shows, right? And so we go, okay, well, if you brought it from 105 to 102, do you think the crowd would notice that much? Well, probably not. You know that they could be in it twice as long if you did that? So now we're trying to educate the engineering world. So there is the Audio Engineering Society, which I'm a member of, and I had a technical committee on hearing and hearing loss prevention. My cohort is on the loudspeaker, Adam Hill. He's also on the World Health Organization, and he's doing the same thing for loudspeakers and engineers, and they're the ones trying to push this stuff. So it's going. It's just not in the United States. And in fact, of all the people in this World Health group, who else is on this committee? I think 2 people from the U.S. with me. It's Canadians, it's people from all over the world, but I don't know. AAA doesn't even do that much with them, which I'm kind of surprised at. And just, it's amazing to me because World Health is like, they really got it going for at least music and hearing loss prevention.
So I have a quick question because, as a music audiologist, I'm seeing you're involved in innovative products. You're also involved in providing audiological services to, I think I read somewhere, 40,000+ musicians across your career. But then you're also...
That makes me old, doesn't it?
Yeah,
because you can only see so many a day.
Old too,
Somebody do the math.
Yeah, but then
I'm not a spring chicken.
But then you also have done countless hours of educating the masses, and it's not just the musicians, it's whatever. So of those 3 things, is there one part that resonates with you the most, or do you just love all of them doing all
I think that's an equal. Each one brings its own satisfaction, right? Getting audiologists, like I had somebody come up to me that I respected. They go, that Heather Meigs probably passed you up as far as being the music audiologist. And I went, yay.
Dang.
Right? She stood on my shoulders. She better do better than me, all of them.
I love that attitude.
Man, you guys are starting with my knowledge. I am hoping that they all excel. So that part is really great to see audiology and the field starting to get into this, right? And we're trying to grow it with the Gold Circle class. Developing products is not satisfying to do. It's satisfying if they work well afterwards, but it is not a fun journey. It's not. I wouldn't recommend it for anybody that doesn't like to have to redo things a million times, because that's product development. It's not fun. But, having a few patents and things that really work to help people, nobody else would do it. And so we did it. I have a sign in my office. It says, nobody else is going to do it, and it's not going to get done by itself.
There you go.
Right?
I like that. So, with regard to some of the hesitancy that you encounter, some of the objections and all that, from like the music community.
Does it from the music people?
Yeah, from the music people, like, are they just completely uninformed and have preconceived notions of like, this is going to distort the music if I'm using more products?
I think the ones that think that mainly are people in the classical world, the non-amplified people, are very, and especially in orchestra where there's just kind of this stigma of anything non-traditional, right? So if you're putting something in your ears, they don't want it to show. And some don't care. They want to protect themselves. Orchestras all over the place. They'll do anything. They don't care what it looks like or sounds like. Others are like, oh, my violin just doesn't sound right. I go, well, guess what? In about 10 years, it's going to sound like that all the time. Like you have a plug-in. You just won't notice it as much because it's slowly getting used to it. But I think, David, the biggest thing, and I think you're trying to get to this, but if not, I will say something to you. Musicians' brains, and this is the big classic thing that audiologists don't get about music differences. Number one, their brains are so trained that if you were to take so we did a study at Vanderbilt on ear monitor sound levels compared to floor speakers, what they used to have to use, right? And we said, turn the floor speakers to what you like. And I did a probe mic measurement at the ear canal and then converted the ear canal resonance with an ER7C. Okay, so it's like taking measurements out here. So we recorded that level with the floor wedge, and then we put in an isolating rubber ear monitor and told them to turn that to what they like. And I was like, yoo-hoo! This is at Vanderbilt. We have 100 people in the study. I'm going to show everybody. They turn it down. We're saving hearing. And 98 out of 100 people turned it exactly the same. If it was 111, it was 111. If it was 99, it was not even 1 dB. Normal people without a music background couldn't do that if their life depended on it. But their brains are so plastic, sharp, flat, pitch, timbre. You beat it into your head and you create this sound signature that's yours. And if somebody changes literally 1 or 2 dB and bump a knob, they look at you like, what'd you do? So it's really, and one of the things that they learned along with that subconsciously is loudness. So if you're playing guitar at 100 dB, you put on your ear monitors and they're going to go to 100 because that's what your brain's telling you. So the second part of the study, we said, turn the floor monitor down till you couldn't play anymore. Like it's just not loud enough. You couldn't hear 2.5 dB, right? Anything less, they were like, I couldn't hear enough. Okay, turn your ear monitors down. The average was 6, but people are going down 6 dB, 10 dB. Oh, they sound good here. Right. So if you just listen there for a couple of weeks, you're probably going to find this to be your new norm. And so it's just retraining the brain to listen quietly. And one of the things, again, on the opposite side with 3DME as a tool to enhance people's perception of music with bad hearing, right? And they always go, it's only got 24 dB of gain total per octave. And I don't know if that's enough for my client. I go, this isn't speech environment. This isn't a restaurant. of 65B. You're going to a show who's at least 80 to 100 dB input. How much amplification do you need? You don't need that much. Quit thinking hearing aid. When I tell you, oh, they have too much occlusion effect, oh, vent it or pull one out, I go, no, that's bad for your hearing. So but those are all hearing aid answers, right? These are the things that you know, and so you'd think the solutions are the same and different. And that's why it's important to understand what music audiology is. And they read it right away. Musicians come in, and everybody that works with me and for me are so well informed and so knowledgeable that they're blown away when they leave. They're just blown away, all of them. And that's what you want, because then they said, we haven't done advertising 20 years probably. How many musicians do we see a week? 20 to 30 every week. Right? Because we're the place to go. They all talk, that's the place. Go see them. We've established ourselves. But you wouldn't be that place if we screwed up or people were, you just got to have the knowledge. And I think anybody could do that.
Totally. I mean, I just listening to you talk, if I were sort of like a young aspirational audiologist looking for a, specific subset to sort of focus on, this would be an interesting one because to your point, there's a lot of opportunity and your customer demographic more or less would be receptive to this because they inherently sort of understand what you're saying. And
they also understand dBs and frequencies.
Right.
Most of them, not all of them. Some go, I don't know. And most of them have done some mixing on their own or something, so they get it. So it is interesting. The other thing is advocacy is big, right? So for me to be an advocate, I do with the World Health Organization, World Hearing Day, all this stuff, and I have bands promote stuff. But there's a group in Saudi Arabia that I got involved with. We can get into that story. But they have a concert. First off, they had outlawed music in Saudi Arabia since the 40s. And in about, I think it was the year before in 2019 or whatever, before the pandemic, they said, it's time to have music. We need to have music here. So they charged them, they put on a huge concert, and they called me up and they said, we'd like you to be part, because our whole thing is we want to prevent tinnitus and hearing loss from loud music. This foundation, part of this big show. I go, how many came to the show? He goes, 500,000. I said, what? And he goes, that was our Woodstock. And so this year they're having it again. They're expecting 750,000 people.
Oh my God. Oh my gosh.
250,000 a day. And they have me up there doing a panel discussion with these DJs and shit on how to protect your hearing, excuse my language, and tinnitus prevention stuff. And so they're promoting, and they have a foundation, and they asked me if they could help support. So what I have them doing, this is the next cool thing, which I think is really going to be a great contribution, different than the products, different than the educational thing. This is a database digitization of all those 30,000 records I have, because nobody has access to them. Researchers from Rush and Northwestern will come over and scan through. It takes, 20 charts, but they're all charts, man. I mean, this started in the 80s. So we're talking about a manila folder with results in it, right? With somebody's name on it.
Yeah.
So the foundation is funding, and maybe you guys should help me. Maybe you, A.U, can help with this too, is just to take a copy of the audiogram and case history and then black out the name of the band so nobody knows who it is and put it in the folder. And those goes in, and it gets to be going to a big digitized thing. You want to go look at these, they're all there. Now they go, oh, you're going to put trumpet players? I go, I'm not doing any of the work. I'm putting out the raw data. You guys figure out how many are trumpet players in there, and then you can compare all trumpet players, because the data will be there. But that's what I want to do, because the only you've ever seen is like, oh, we did an orchestra and a marching band from our college, and there was 300 people or something. That's it. I mean, we have DJs, we have world famous, people, we have band directors, you name it, man, it's there.
That's awesome.
And there's lots. So I believe that contribution will help people research it a lot more. And my goal, just so you know, is to create a new safe listening standard for music that is not the one we're using for working in a factory for 40 hours for 40 years with industrial noise pounding your cochlea in the same area. I just think it could be different.
Yes. Well,
I'd like to from it.
You're kind of going to, a area that I think would it would all kind of like permeate out from, if you can get the musicians on board, the music industry, get the public made more aware when they go and attend a concert that there's like signage now that's showing be cognizant.
Well, I was talking to one of these promoters, and they go, we have limited time and space for promotion. I go, you have urinals? He goes, what? I go, you have urinals? I go, ask any guy. You don't look left or right. You look straight ahead.
That's very true.
At the wall. And they usually have some cheap ad from a local plumber or something there. You put something about hearing loss prevention, and plugs are available and some cool things that get people thinking about it. And on the back of the bathroom door in the women's john. And he went, oh, wow. Yeah, that would work. I'm like, give it some effort a little bit, right? But,
I feel like we would be remiss if we don't talk about the guitars, the AAA guitars, of which AU owns a few.
Ooh. Well, somebody of the trio here bought 3 of them.
I did on 3 different years. So Michael,
Yes.
I've heard of you before, but in 2007, when we were both started on the foundation board, is when we ended up sitting next to one another, and I don't know, made each other laugh. And they had a good time.
Yes, he did. And we
It's
still
some
do,
really
by
good
the way.
stuff. But yeah.
Which guitar? Who was the artist for the one that you bought?
So the year one, because Michael, I think over the course of the years, it was 3 years where I remember the silent auction at AAA, sponsored by the foundation, having signed guitars. And one of my biggest regrets is not bidding on a whole bunch, because you had some unbelievable cool.
And it was wasted, unfortunately, on audiologists that are cheap and don't care. But if I put them on some kind of a public platform and had them verified, I mean, I had all of Bon Jovi, all of Aerosmith, a couple guys from the Grateful Dead, Buddy Guy.
You did. You had so
Mario
what happened?
Speedwagon and Styx in one of them.
There was one
I
in
don't know.
particular. My one favorite musician. I never saw one of his autographed, and we'll keep that between us. But the first guitar that I actually bid on, and I knew somebody was jacking up, somebody was messing with me, and I didn't care, because I knew how much I was going to donate the funds to the foundation, because it was all, I believe, going to the Music and Hearing Research Grant Program, perhaps. I don't know. But long story short, a mint green Fender guitar that was signed by all original members of the Dave Matthews Band. The following year, I bid and got Dave Matthews' guitar that he was the only one who autographed it, but he also drew a running rhinoceros that was farting. And it's the funniest thing. And then the last year, it was 2009, and it was really sad because Leroy Moore, I believe that was his name. He was the saxophonist. Yeah. He suddenly had passed away. So the guitar that I ended up getting was the new band member, I think Jeff Coffin. So I have Dave Matthews guitars in the media room.
But you have the one that he did a caricature of himself in the band, don't you?
Yes, I do. So, and that's the one with the farting rhinoceros on it too. So,
no, that's a different one. Farting rhinoceros was different.
I'm going to look at them again, but I have 3. I have different.
You have 2 artworks by him. That's all I'm saying. Those are not anything else. Believe me.
So
Dave Matthews artwork, that's something.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I have those thanks to Michael Santucci. Well,
I have those thanks
those are
to
the ones who
Dave
wrote
Matthews.
the checkout. But
And so you were able to get the artists to sign the guitars that you were then able to auction off. I mean, you have room.
You know what's funny, David? When I first started doing it, I'd ask them, and they go, "Sure," and they go to the guitar tech, send him one of those. Oh, yeah, okay. And it never came. Never came. When
because it was
when
there.
the guitar tech says 2 shows later, we forgot all about you. Just so you know, we're on the road. He goes, but if you bring a guitar for them to sign, they will sign. So I'd buy my guitar and just show up with the guitar. And nobody said no, ever. Bob Weir didn't want to because he never signs anything from the Grateful Dead. But I goes, Bob, you've been at Glen for 30 years. Give me a break.
Did Bob actually sign one?
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. Was he your main contact or was Jerry your contact?
Neither. That's always the sound crew, David. You know, the bands very rarely. There's some band members that we just clicked. So, you know, Steve Wenwood used to call me himself and we'd go out drinking and he came into town. We wanted to see the planetarium because he's into them. And so, you know, that sort of thing, but that's rare. You know, the guys from REO Speedwagon always stop in the office when they're in town. We go out for lunch or something and that kind of stuff. But it's fun to be, you know, all that, but none of them are really out. I'm not there to be their friends. I'm there to help them. And I think everybody wants to be their friend. And you get a lot more respect when you're all business and you're not like, I've been such a big fan my whole life. And whatever, you're here to help me. Shut up.
Yeah. That's so cool. This has been a great conversation, Mike. I've really enjoyed your, you know, telling us the history of Sensaphonics and kind of the motivation behind why some of this stuff came to be. So I know that you have, you know, what you're doing now with 3D ME and your ASI business. What does the future hold for you? What are you focused on for the next few years?
That's a good question. I don't know. Getting the thing. You know, I do know. Here's the thing. I have in May of next year, I'm co-chairing the 4th conference of audio engineers and audiologists in Copenhagen at Aalborg's Copenhagen campus, Ristebalberg. And so that's pretty exciting because it's the people that design the products and then the people that, like me and you that want to help people not. So lose their hearing. So I think that's always good, right? To get both together. That's coming up in May. I've got a World Health meeting coming up. I've got this thing in Saudi Arabia in December. So I'm active in advocacy, promoting, getting the word out. All that. I plan to stay there. As far as the company goes, who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? You know, I could fall. Everybody goes, what's your exit strategy? And I say, probably somebody will see me laying on the desk. I'm like, I don't know. I'm supposed to be retired by now, but I just don't seem to want to do it. So,
well, yeah. This is what you want to do.
There's more. You know, it's more. You know, David, it's more things that have come up. This Gold Circle virtual class took me 2.5 years to put together. And the DB Check Pro, and they were all supposed to come like bing, 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 bing. Well, they all came at the same time because of the pandemic. So I'm dealing with 4 launches and it's crazy pandemonium.
Yeah.
So once that all settles down, how long, maybe in a couple of years, we'll see.
I do want to just real quick touch on the Gold Circle thing because I do think that's super interesting. So how do you actually become Gold Circle certified, if you will? And once you do, is there something on your website that like can direct people to?
Yes, absolutely.
San Diego or something like that? Here's the closest Gold Circle provider.
That's it. And we've always done that. But how you sign up is just go to the sensaphonics.com website and sign up for the virtual Gold Circle course. As soon as you throw your money in, you have 72 hours to stream the course, which is, I think, plenty of time, but people have to budget it. Once the 72 hours is up, that course goes away, but there's still almost 2 hours of downloadable material done by other audiologists. Shannon Switzer, who's running our clinic, and so they're more detailed stuff. And I give about 20 points of takeaway, so they still remember what the lecture was about. And so, what was the question?
The Gold Circle. So they go on the site.
Oh, so they get they take the course. Once they take the course, they have to take a test, and if they pass the test, they get their Gold Circle certificate. They also have to take an ear impression properly, which is the biggest struggle for everybody. It's a lost art, right? What do you do? Domes, nobody goes in deep anymore into the ear. They take these scans and stuff. And I'm like, you need to have a deep ear impression and show us you can do it. Oh, I know how to take it. Oh, good. When you show us, then we'll pass you. And it's amazing how many people don't know how. And I'm like, you can cheat and have somebody else do it. But when they show up at our door, we turn them away. We don't say make it anyway. The impression is bad. Do it again. We will, or send it to another lab. We won't do it. And so that's it. And we paint them gold so they can take a picture and post it on social media that they're gold circle. And then they're listed on our website. And so many of the artists, even our competitors from other companies that make in-ear monitors, use our list. So if you want to be, they know the gold circle list. So I know that from the audiologists say, oh yeah, JH called me in Westone, and yeah, because they go and say, who did he educate? We'd like to use them.
Yeah. That's great. Well, thank you so much, Michael. I really appreciate you coming on today, sharing your story. It's super interesting. I look forward to the next time our paths cross at one of these different industry trade shows.